You ever wonder why some people step into high pressure moments with total confidence while others freeze? On today's show, we're breaking down the surprising similarities between stepping onto a stage and stepping in front of a camera to get set on fire or crash a motorcycle. And what are the similarities, you may ask? What looks dangerous is often the results of intense presence and rehearsal and practice and focus. And we got a person who knows a thing or two about fear, a stuntman who spent a career managing fear under pressure. You ready? Let's go!
The Presentation Whisperer. Real-world tips, expert insights, and proven strategies to make every presentation unforgettable. Now, here's your host, professional speaker, and best-selling author, Rob Jellis.
Today's guest, Brett Salamano, was a stuntman for film and TV for 15 years. He's also a Guinness World Record achiever for backing a semi-truck the longest distance ever. And he now helps people bring order to their chaos in their mind and lives through speaking and coaching. As usual, I'm going to let my guest take it from here, so he'll do a better job than me. So, Brett, the floor is yours. Talk to us about your journey. Tell us about yourself.
Hey, Rob. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. You might hear first and foremost, I've got a bit of a funny accent. I was born in Australia and growing up in a small country town, there wasn't much to do other than ride push bikes and swim in the lake and swing Tarzan swings around and watch movies. And there's an interesting interaction there, that interesting collection of all that turned me into basically becoming a stuntman in the film industry in Australia for a few years. I was blessed to get the green card in the lottery system and moved over to the US and was able to continue following my dream. I've been on some TV shows as a stunt performer, like NCIS Los Angeles, The Walking Dead, Stranger Things, and a handful of other ones. And it was a beautiful experience for several years. And the film industry's gone a little bit quiet now, and I've taken that opportunity to I've had a couple of truck businesses over the past couple of years, but move into management consultant and teaching people emotional intelligence, leadership. You mentioned the Guinness World Record. There was a Guinness World Record I achieved several years ago for backing a semi-truck 55 and a third miles in 4 hours, which is about 14 miles an hour on average. That record has since been broken, unfortunately, but that was a beautiful experience for me. What else can I tell you? There's 33 seconds on the clock, and that's sort of the pinnacle of what I've had.
Well, you're allowed to finish early, by the way. I don't hold it against anybody. And I find it interesting that, and that's why when we started talking, it really appealed to me. I said, "Oh, a stuntman! I want to talk to a stuntman," because fear dogs us all. I'm at this 40 plus years. I'm not sure about the word fear, but anxiousness. There's certain words I'll use to replace it. So, do you still get scared yourself? Or did you even get scared? Is that the wrong word for you when you had to do a stunt?
It's interesting, and I'm glad you bring that up about the difference between fear and anxiety, and there's lots of nuances there. And I think at the end of the day, what we're talking about, whatever the label is, it's a strong emotional or sensory feeling that we have internally that calls us forth into the present moment to say, whoa, something's up here, or maybe I shouldn't be doing that. We can talk more about picking that apart and analyzing that, but I believe that every emotion that we have is kind of like a dashboard on our car. And I use a lot of vehicle metaphors, being a stunt driver and a vehicle business owner. In a vehicle, you want to be looking at your dashboard, keeping an eye on what the fuel's doing and stuff. And as the gauges move and as the lights come on, that's telling us something. Hey, it's time to get fuel, brother. You need to figure that out pretty quick. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck on the side of the road. So a lot of these other emotions like fear, anxiety, I still feel them, but I believe it's up to me to react and respond in different ways. Now, I may or may not feel fear before getting set on fire or driving a truck or something like that, but there's nuances to it, and I need to listen and feel what's going on. And sometimes, look, it's part of it. I've heard of a lot of very successful actors, people that have been knighted. They're so famous, they say that every time they go on stage or in front of the camera, they still feel so nauseous that they're actually going to throw up. And some of them even do still, which just blows my mind that you could do it for 50, 60 plus years and still feel it. But that's their process, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Carol Burnett was a classic. I don't know if you remember Carol Burnett, but long time Carol Burnett show, comedian, etc. She was one of those people that was very out front about the fact that she would get very nauseous to the event of getting sick before almost every performance. I would think, and we're going to cross into the speaking side, which you've crossed into, but I would think as a stuntman, you'd want to have, and like I said, we'll use the right words with you. But you want to have something firing off in your belly to stay focused. I don't know if I want to be backing that truck up and listening to music and not knowing that there's some fear involved here. I could jackknife this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking specifically to the world record, that was always one of my concerns, because I'm backing this thing around a parking lot. It's a huge parking lot, but at 14 miles an hour in a 53-foot trailer, you can cover a lot of ground very quickly. And it's not like driving forwards where you might wander off the line a little bit. I had my lines and my marks that I was trying to keep to. If I wandered too far, I'm pretty good at backing, but there's a certain point where you back something and you've jackknifed it, as you say. So that was always a concern. And that kept me present for those 4 hours. It was 162 laps of this parking lot, third of a mile each lap. And I'm just constantly going around and, okay, this is what I'm focusing on. This is what I'm focusing on every step of the way. And so I was listening to music actually to keep myself casual and in the zone. I had a good buddy next to me who was sort of, moving things around and changing batteries or whatever we needed to do, because we had some walkie-talkies and cameras and things. But yeah, I'm going from the next thing to the next thing. I'm trying to keep myself as focused as much as possible. I'm not worried about 2 hours down the track, or did I worry about that? I had a process built up beforehand, a checklist to get me in the truck, and then just some things to focus on when I was in the truck,
Yeah.
And those kind of checklists and that dashboard can bring you back into that present moment. Absolutely.
Yeah, and again, it's that preparation. But I remember I took I spoke about this before, but I want to talk to you about it fast. I took this Segway tour. You know what a Segway is? Okay.
Yep.
And I remember the guy saying to us all, he said, now I know you all are probably a little fearful. Don't be. This is fine. The most dangerous part of this Segway in this 3-hour tour is going to be the last 10 minutes. When you're not fearful anymore. He didn't quite go into as much detail, but we got a little bit cocky. We started to see, maybe I'll cut you off, you cut me off. Let's see if we can jump a curb. How close can you get to a tree? Yeah. So that mild amount of fear is what I'm getting at. And in the speaking world, and we'll slide in there now, I want to have that same kind of focus that you're talking about. That, like I said, fear is a weird word for me, but anxiousness. I want to be anxious because I don't want to be flat. I don't want to make mistakes. How about you when you're transitioning to the stage now? Okay, is it a similar kind of fear? Are you feeling something a little bit different? How would you compare the two?
Yeah, I think the word you might be looking for, not to put words in your mouth because it's a very specific experience, but apprehension is perhaps a better word to slip in amongst these other things. And whether it's a world record or you wanting to do a good job on stage, you want to be a bit apprehensive. You want to be curious. You want to be poised and present and ready. And stage is an interesting one, as you would know, because you do a lot of rehearsal and preparation and you have your keynote and you've prepared it. I'm never really a word for word kind of guy, for better or worse. But you have your preparation, your stories and your bits. And then you could get on stage and the audience is flat, or they're expecting something different, or they say, hey, can you speak for half an hour instead of 45 minutes? And all of a sudden you've got to say, what do I need to do? And the film industry is very much the same. You have this idea that you've rehearsed. They say, oh, we haven't got time for that. Just do this instead. And so you have to think on your feet and you have to know what's valuable and what's not, what's going to bring the most value. And also what's going to, in the film industry, keep you safe, but also what's going to be the most value for the audience if you're speaking. So it's about, I talk about this when I talk about stunts and business ownership, but maximum impact to minimum risk, minimum cost. in public speaking, it's very similar as well. Maximum impact, but you got to read the room. You got to get the audience there, because the audience might be flat. They might have just come off lunch. They might be the last thing before the end of the day. So how can you stay present? How can you stay a little bit curious, apprehensive, reading the room? I talk about it like being a conductor as a public speaker. You see some people, you might want to bring them in, just get their focus a little bit more, reach out to those guys specifically, and kind of play this orchestra a little bit, and use the audience like an orchestra. And that's what you have to do. You have to be really present. And being a stuntman, it's the same thing. Okay, we've done this 3 times, but it might be different. So you got to be reading the room every time as well. And I think presence can solve a lot of fear. As feelings come up, you say, "Oh, hang on a sec. I should be okay right now, but I'm getting this little intuitive ping." Everyone has this different gut feel, this intuitive ping. Stuntman, spidey sense. Maybe I'll just check that truck one more time. Maybe I'll just double check some things here and there. And it's just about being in the present moment and going through your checklist, but also being a little bit flexible to ride the moment. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, what people don't realize is that many presentations, keynotes, workshops, you can be as prepared as you want. And congratulations, you've already figured out one of the most important rules of this whole business is you don't want a script. You don't want, you really need to back that thing down and just trust yourself. You need point A to point B to point C to point D. I get it. Mm-hmm. But how many words do we really need once I see, elevator story? Got it. Truck record. Got it. I'll just talk about that. But so what you find is there's a lot of improv that's really involved. And that's kind of the way and you're a lot better as an improv actor if you're not strapped to a script. So I think you'll find that's a little bit easier. And that audience, even if you've done it 50 times, the same keynote, the audience has changed, so the improv moments change. And quite frankly, I think that's where they're judging you the most. When you and me, let's go sit in the audience sometime. We appreciate when we see something that we know was unscripted. Okay,
that's right.
And yet, the guy who's driving that truck backwards, I'm going to make it look unscripted, but I'm actually prepared for what happens if the guy sitting next to me falls asleep or whatever. We blow a tire. But that's the art of the business. Well, let's stay there. Are there any process moves that you can give us? So we got I'm with you. Presence is important. Is there anything that you do? Is it a mantra? Is it a chant? Do you write things down? Any ideas? We've got some newer speakers might be listening. They want to be present. What would be some tips for them?
Yeah, I think leading up to I talk about the moment before, right? What is the moment before you did the thing? And what's the moment before the moment before? And there's a series of steps there, like even from how you wake up in the morning, getting a good night's sleep. That might sound obvious, but what did you do to go to bed the night before as well? How does that all lay out? For me, it's about preparation. I always love to ask the question with my event manager or speaker booker, whoever that might be, and ask them, what do you need most from me? What is the thing that would make this an absolute slam dunk? Oh, we just want to hear about your cool stunt stories. Oh, we just want to, whatever it might be. And then, that's the core pillar. Everything else comes out from there. And then I have my bits and my stories and my questions. And again, that's days before, of course, that's weeks before even. But in the moments before, I'm going through those little things. Hey, does this still feel relevant? Does this story, is this just me fluffing myself? And I have to go through a lot of these little reiterations and just tuning in as I'm getting there. Maybe I'll look at the company website again. Maybe I'll start talking to some people beforehand. I'm just trying to just read the room before I get in the room, Then I'll often have my physical process, which is usually either a meditation to ground me and or some kind of physical expansion, I call it. I still get a little bit nervous before talks, but I find that's often my body waking me up. It's going from, me sitting in the corner of the room, being in bed on my own, staring at my phone or whatever it might be, to, hey, I'm here and I'm ready to talk to all of you guys, the 50, couple of hundred people, whatever it might be. And I think sometimes that nervousness can be the body waking up, the soul waking up, ready to share with whatever it might be, hundreds of people, So there's that process beforehand, which is usually just getting in the zone of what I'm about to say, getting my head straight on, but also getting the physical body, just learning, reteaching the body to stand up straight and take ownership of my posture, start using my gestures a bit more. And also shaking hands and making eye contact with a lot of people before I get on set too, or on the stage too, just to encourage that my body and mind to start seeing those personal interactions before we go there. So there's all these little things to start waking my body up beforehand, and just remind it, or having listened to it remind me that this is what I'm about to do. I do think there's a two-way street there for sure.
Yeah. I'll throw a couple. I hope you don't mind. I love participating in my own podcast.
Yeah.
But one of the thoughts I've always given myself, and it's an honest thought, although it sounds kind of silly, is, while I'm waking that body up, I'm reminding myself that this audience out there that I've never met before, they've never met me, they are rooting for me. And I know that as a fact. And I know that as a fact because even the most cynical person out there is thinking, I don't want to sit here and waste my time for an hour. I hope this stuntman has got something that we can use. Now, they might be a little ornery about it, but they're rooting against themselves if they root against you. So I kind of work with that a little bit of mentally, like, no, this isn't that dream that we have. The reality is, if for no other reason but selfishness, they are rooting for me. Couple of nice deep breaths. What usually happens? What's my track record? Oh yeah, I've done 60 of these this year, and oh yeah, not one time did an air conditioner fall on my head or whatever weird, place that my mind's going. So I think reminding ourselves of really logically what's about to happen can take us out of wherever, and reminding ourselves, just like you, I didn't bring you on the show and ask you how to split an atom today. Maybe you can do it, maybe you can't.
I cannot.
I wanted to talk to you about what you do. And usually when we're doing a keynote or a workshop, we really are working from what we know. Yeah, there may be a question we don't know. We learn how to handle that too. But we realize, what exactly are we afraid of? It's more in the dream than the reality.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. I think the mind, there's a whole bunch of stuff we can jump in here. We haven't got a whole lot of time to do it all, but I do find the fear of social exile to be a very ancient fear, because we want to do a good job, as you say. We want the people in the back row to know what we know, and I think public speakers are very very generous people. We really care about people, and we want to tell the world about what we've got. And we care about people's reactions, but sometimes a little too much, and that can get in the way. And we have to be willing to let a couple of people tell us that we weren't that good because it just didn't land for them, or whatever it might be. But we have to get in there and give it a go, because we know there's going to be at least one person in the audience, 5, 10, 50 people that think we're amazing, and we really spoke to them. But we never know until we try, as you say.
Yeah. What do you think is harder? Public speaking? Or let's leave the truck one alone. But I believe you've set yourself on fire or something else crazy. Pick one of your kooky stunts. What do you think is more challenging, speaking or a stunt? And I know it's kind of apples and oranges, so it's almost not a fair question, but wrestle with it anyhow. Let's see what you got.
It's a good question. It's an interesting question for sure. I think, look, public speaking, if you were given an audience and they say, hey, Rob, can you just entertain these guys for 5 minutes or whatever? Hey, Rob, that story, can you tell that story? You could, with a little bit of, hey, who are these people and what do they need? Just one question. You could jump up and riff something for a little bit, I'm sure. Most good public speakers could. In fact, all good public speakers could, I think. With stunts, it's a little bit different because you don't know how it's going to get edited, what the vision is. Maybe you don't have the script. You're just told that here's the fight scene and whatever else. So when you get on set, you don't always have that information, and you really have to bring everything together as much as you can. As a public speaker, when you get in front of that room, you feel that room immediately. And if you know what the invitation is, you can then speak to that. I can talk about my awesomeness as a stuntman, the mindfulness that it took for me to be a stuntman, and make it relatable, the public speaking, the business ownership or whatever. I can bring those aspects in with that small invitation. But I think with stunts, I'm not always clear. It's sometimes, hey, go over here and we need you to fall down. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, I can fall down, but I have to read the room in a different way, which I think is a little bit more of a challenge to get right. Yeah.
Good. Glad you said it. First of all, there's the that old survey that really is almost kind of a wives' tale at this point. That public speaking is the number one fear. It's more, people fear it more than death itself, drowning, snakes. Absolutely not true. That sort of just came out maybe in the 50s or 60s. I don't know where that thing has been dragged around, but it's really not true. And I ask you the question because, as a speaker, I would think, the stunts would be a little bit more dangerous for me or fearful, because we have, in public speaking, professional speaking, we have a get out of jail free card. Okay. And the get out of jail free card really is energy and enthusiasm. You can get up there and botch this, don't have that, forgot that. Of course, be intelligent. You don't have to tell people all the mistakes you're making, but it can be going sideways for you. But if you're hustling and you're paying attention to that audience and being empathetic and walking amongst them and just making it up with as much energy and enthusiasm, you can survive. But I'm thinking of your world as a stuntman. Well, I don't know about that, but I'm very energetic, enthusiastic. You'd be in the corner laughing at me going, that ain't going to help you up here right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel maybe it's also that I've been in my area for a long time, but I feel safer on the speaking side than where you were.
Absolutely. I mean, it's all relative, everyone, I think we all know somebody who would say, well, I could never do that job,
Yeah.
And it's interesting because when I'm in a room with other people and, we're at a party, I say, oh, what do you do? I used to be a stuntman. Now I'm a public speaker. Oh, tell me about being a stuntman. I'm like, well, I kind of want to hear about you, but everyone wants to hear about the stuntman because it's interesting and unique. And that just comes with the territory of being exotic and whatever else. But I do think we all have this sort of upward and downward envy for everybody else. Other people have it easier or harder. I could never do that, but they felt naturally inclined to do that, and they learned it, and they've overcome their processes, whatever that job might be. And I think it is a two-way street in all regards in that way. I do find it interesting, as you say, about the public speaking is the number one fear. I'm sure that was a study or a statistic at some point, and then speaker trainers have latched onto that and kept it going for the
drag it around like an old sock. Yeah.
Yeah. But I do think the fear is a very ancient fear that comes from social exile for sure, because we don't want to say the wrong things to the wrong people and get, back then get kicked out of the tribe. Nowadays it's social exile. Or nowadays it's cancel culture. Back then it was social exile. So yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever have a moment, and I promise I'm going to keep transitioning back to speaking, particularly since I just heard you say everybody wants to talk about the stunts. You've transitioned yourself, but I just think there's a very interesting connection because many people, not necessarily a grizzled vet professional speaker, but the person who works in the HR department who's got to speak at the year-end meeting once a year, they're just shaking in their shoes. That's why I'm trying to tie the two together. Was there a moment for you where fear almost got the best out of you? And what snapped you back into control when it did? Because we're going to learn from that on the speaking side when what comes next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm thinking, I mean, I lump all of the fear, and we're talking about fear in a general term here. I lump all those emotions in together, but they are very nuanced, and I think they'll tell you certain things. Some of those could be, hey, let me just get out the truck and check something. Let me just double check that one more time, or let me ask a dumb question here. And other times it's no, we're not going to do that. And I think that can be helpful as well. Sometimes you get a little voice and you don't listen to it, and you realize afterwards that you should have listened to it. I think we all have that regret sometimes, but we didn't listen to that. Specifically, I'm trying to think of some times when the fear has overcome me. I know I did a talk, actually, I'll share this example, and it's not stunts necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
But public speaking, there was a talk I gave a few months ago, and I'd traveled a long way to get there geographically on the plane. And, I'm giving myself plenty of prep time to land and get grounded and everything. And I'm just going through my rehearsals beforehand. And because I was kind of nervous, and I was getting more and more nervous the closer I got. And I thought, okay, maybe if I prepare harder. But then I realized the more I prepared, the worse the anxiety got. And so I had to listen to myself and say, you know what, I actually just need to let this go right now. Just step back and just enjoy myself here for a little bit for the last 12 hours before my talk. Don't get so wound up. I was probably winding myself up. And that was the nudge for me, is that, okay, this is getting super overwhelming now, this anxiety. This is weird. This is absolutely bizarre. But again, this is what I'm going to keep harping on, Rob, because I do believe it 100%, is that our body's trying to tell us something when those things happen. So what is it trying to tell us? We have to learn and listen and piece it all together. And it does change. Sometimes that anxiety might mean, hey, don't do this. Or that anxiety might mean, hey, no, you need to do it, but you need to step up and get into the moment and be bigger and stronger. Have some more fun with it, or be more serious. And it can move. So we have to listen. And that was an interesting one for me, because I thought I knew what my limited, or that narrow band of anxiety meant, but it actually meant something else to me in the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to validate something for you, and I don't think most people know this, and I sort of thought it was just me until I started talking to some other speakers. Whenever I go out of the country, the further I travel, the more anxious I get. It has nothing to do with the traveling. I just feel like, wow, they flew me all the way over here to, to Malaysia. I better be good. You know, when I'm in Topeka, Kansas, love the place, but I'm not quite as anxious. Yeah. I didn't come quite as far. So I think it's one of these sort of unconscious kind of things that we're not really aware of. It's that one. And then sometimes it'll happen where the numbers will just change a little bit, and it'll be a very big paying gig for you. Just big. And that's when you also have to sort of talk to yourself and go, my dad, the Lee Giles method, that audience puts their pants on one leg at a time. Same as you, but you have to sort of talk yourself. I think it's distance, and sometimes it's pay. And they shouldn't matter, but tell that to your brain.
That's right. Yeah. Well, the other thing is, like, all of a sudden it's this speaking gig, and there's certain persons in the audience, or it's for that organization or whatever. And you say, my TED talk is finally happening, or it could even be that you're speaking to your mother's church group or something like that. And it's just, you put the pressure on yourself because you're speaking in front of your mother's church group,
Right.
And it is very fascinating about when all that stuff comes up. Yeah.
Yeah. And, the funny thing is, I wrote an article about this one time. I've actually don't mind when people go, now listen, the president of the such and such is over in that left corner, and this is really important to us. Sometimes that's actually helpful, because remember, the only thing we have to fear is not having any fear. Okay. Well, you're not hurting me. You're not upsetting me when you tell me there's a lot riding on this. Believe me, before I walked in, there was a lot riding on this. The fact that the CEO's there and this is that I think if we talk to our brains properly, that ought to just make our performance just a little sweeter, a little bit better. But it's not going to add any anxiety to it. It shouldn't. It's just going to remind you that, why can't we pretend that every time we're speaking, we're traveling far, being paid more than we usually get, and the CEO's in the corner. I know one thing, Brett, you and I will not be flat that day. And that's really what dogs every presentation is. Will this be the flat one?
Yeah.
Right? Got a flat audience. I got, I don't have a lot riding on it. That's when I'm looking for something to get me anxious.
Yeah. Yeah. And you never know what people are going to respond with anyway. You could do your worst talk of your life and they think you're the best, and you could do the best talk of your life and they think, we just wanted more of this and more of that. And that's why I really like to make it tangible, because it can be very subjective what we do. Yeah. They expect you to be something, or they think you're going to be exactly like Tony Robbins because that's the image they have. And that's why I try and boil it down to, what are you actually hoping for here? Just let me ask that question again. Is there anything else you need right now? Also asking the question sincerely and listening, like, hey, so, how's the past week been for you guys? Because sometimes they'll say, a couple of people got fired recently that were really big. It's like, all right, I better treat that subject a bit more sensitively. To the wins and losses that we've most recently had. Bringing yourself back into the present moment with as much of that stuff as possible, and just doing your thing is super key, I think. Yeah.
That's why, I'll keep pumping it back to, when the audience sees effort, it matters. One of the greatest things for me, and I try, because, I can't run on stage, but there's no running. But I can move quickly. I can, and I can be as intense as I want. And when I feel myself beginning to sweat, I really love it. I want to sweat. I want to walk by people and have it coming off my ear. And I want to go, my God, look, that guy is really working today. Yeah, because I can't control the other things. But right off the bat, we're taking a big leap into that audience when they see how hard you're working, how driven you are, how much enthusiasm. So I'm not trying to make light of our content. We're there to teach and inform. I'm an ex-Xerox guy. I'm not just there to motivate you. But by golly, the fact that we can control probably the most important thing that audience, whether they know it or not, is looking for, should give us some confidence. You know, I can't control some of the other stuff, but that I can control. And that's a huge piece. Whew, we could go deeper into this. I love this topic, too, and I really appreciate the tips you've been given. How do people get a hold of you?
They can find me on my website, stuntmansguide.com. That's stuntmansguide.com. Or you can find me on LinkedIn, first and last name, of course. And I'd love to help anyone who's looking to get really curious and push some hard buttons around what they got going on and get out of their comfort zones a little bit more.
Spell that name out again, just so everybody knows it. We'll have it on the website as well.
Mm-hmm. A Stuntman's Guide. So that's...
no, you don't have to spell that. It's your name I want you to spell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Stuntman they can spell.
Solomano. Yeah. SOLOMANO.
Okay.
Solomano.
Got it. And Brett's pretty easy, right?
Brett's
BRETT.
right.
There you go. All right. Well, it's been, I like that. We were going to, okay. It's been a pleasure. I got to tell you, Brett and I kind of bumped into each other on LinkedIn. Hooray for LinkedIn again. And I was really looking forward to getting an opportunity to hear from you because we need this topic. You think about it as any speaker. We want to have a little, not too much, but boy, you come to peace with anxiety. You come to peace with fear. And what else is there really holding you back at that point other than great content and go give them everything you got? So you did a great job. I really appreciate you being on the show. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Rob. Appreciate it.
You bet. And we'll do it again as well as we can next time, everybody. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please follow, rate, and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. For more resources and to connect with Rob, visit thepresentationwhisperer.com.